Howdy. On behalf of the San Antonio Family Association, I want to welcome you to another Get to Know the Candidate conversation. Today, we're pleased and honored to have with us Cim Gilson, who is a candidate for District 5, the Northeast Independent School District School Board, or Board of Trustees, as the official name. And so welcome, Cim. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
And it's going to be a great hour getting to know Cim. And there are two candidates running for Northeast Independent School District, District 5, the incumbent, and Cim Gilson, who is running against the incumbent. And we look forward to having this opportunity for you to get to know the candidate. It's part of the Safe Educate series, and so we're happy to have you here. So let us begin, as we do with all the things we do, in prayer. And this prayer is a prayer asking for the one triune God to pour his grace down upon us. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. We sit before you, Holy Spirit, conscious of our sinfulness, but aware that we gather in your name. Come to us, remain with us, and enlighten our hearts. Give us light and strength to know your will, to make it our own, and to live it in our lives. Guide us by your wisdom, support us by your power. For your God, sharing the glory of Father and Son. You desire justice for all, enable us to uphold the rights of others. Do not allow us to be misled by ignorance or corrupted by fear or favor. Unite us to yourself in the bond of love, and keep us faithful to all that is true. As we gather in your name, may we temper justice with love, so that all our decisions may be pleasing to you and earn the reward promised to good and faithful servants. We ask this of you, who live and reign with the Father and the Son, one God, forever and ever. Amen. And if you would, Cim, we'll have you lead us in, our flags have disappeared. Give us 1 minute and say hello to everybody and tell them a little bit about yourself. We're going to grab the flags.
Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us as we sit down and talk about some of the issues that are involved in the school board race and about myself personally as a candidate. We're getting our flags together so we can do our pledges, and I'll be happy to share more with you in just a minute after we get set up.
Okay, well, we'll stand and recite the pledges, and as we ask all the students to do every day at school. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The bottom page is the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Okay, so, sorry for that to our guests and viewers. We had a busy week last week with some other things we were doing, and those flags got moved to a different part of the office with what we were doing. So thank you for your indulgence there. As we start, we'd like, as we have followed the process with this same process with every candidate, we want to make sure we're trying to be as consistent as possible. Just to let you know, all candidates running for NEISD school board have been invited to join us for this Get to Know conversation series, and some have replied, some haven't. We're hoping that the rest of them will come on. There's a total of 5 races for Northeast Independent School District on the November 3rd ballot, the general election of the presidential election, November 3rd, 2020. And it's just 47 days away, I believe, if that's correct, somewhere in there. And so it's coming fast. And so it's highly critical at this point to get to know your candidates, make sure you have a well-informed conscience, and that's what we hope to bring value to you to do so. With that, if you need to get registered to vote, you can still do that. I'm not sure you'll be able to vote for this election. However, still get out and vote, get out and register to vote so that you can do that. More information will be coming. You can find it at SanAntonioFamilyAssociation.com and on each of the social media links of San Antonio Family Association, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, on Twitter, at SafeAFamily. It is this particular race is a nonpartisan race, so you're not going to find a Republican or Democrat candidates as laid out on the rest of the ballot. And this is also a down ballot race. And being that this is the first time in the state of Texas that there will be, since it was passed, there will be no voting where you can vote a straight party ticket. So you actually have to vote for every race, and you're going to have to work your way down, all the way down the ballot to vote in the Northeast Independent School District elections. There's 5 races. It's very critical in this time to vote, to make sure you're protecting Texas children, respecting taxpayers, honoring parents, and the like. So thank you again for being here, and we look forward to this hour getting to know Cim Gilson, for candidate for NEISD Place 5 or District 5, which is the Johnson High School area. So Cim, I know you have some educational criteria and accomplishments, as well as some family accomplishments. So tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are to our viewers.
Sure. Well, I'm the youngest of 7 boys in my family, and now I am the proud father of 2 kids, one who's 2.5, and 1-year-old, and we are actually expecting a 3rd come December. So the family is growing, the kids are a joy, and I'm happily married 4 years now. The reason I'm running for school board is because of my kids, and to try and ensure that they get the best education, the most wholesome education that we as a district can provide. And I've seen some decisions by the board in the last few years that have concerned me as a parent. And I do believe that we in the district, all moms and dads deserve a true conservative, pro-family parent on the board. We'll get into some of the votes and issues down the line, but we seem to be lacking a conservative voice on this current board. I know the value of an education to get people out of poverty and to improve one's lot in life, and I'll tell you why I say that. In just 2 generations, my own family has gone from migrant farm work to professional work. My grandmother, the matriarch of our family, she reached about a 6th grade level in about 4 months of tutoring on a farm. And later on in life, she went and got her GED as a senior citizen. My mom and her sisters all picked cotton in South Texas. And my mom graduated high school. When she did, she didn't even know college was an option for her. Indeed, high school itself was a privilege, an exception. My grandpa didn't believe in schooling beyond 8th grade for girls. And my grandma fought and worked 3 jobs to put her daughters through high school. My dad, on the other hand, grew up in a farm in Ohio, a poor family. He was the oldest of 9 kids from the Mennonite tradition. When he graduated high school, he went on to the Air Force and explored the world, learned some trades and skills, and Air Force training brought my mom and him together here at Lackland Air Force Base. Education was always important to my family, especially my mom, and she made sure that all of us 7 boys had an opportunity to go to a good school and to go to college. So I and my oldest brother are the first 2 people in the 4 generations of our family to have graduated college. My brother's a doctor and I'm a lawyer. And we're both the first of those in our family. So I want to make sure that that same opportunity is available for all of our kids. And I think that we can provide that if we have the right leadership on the school board, that we have good values, conservative values that have made our country strong, that have made our state attractive to businesses and families alike. I believe that leadership is missing from our current board, and so that's why I'm running to ensure better leadership, better skills, better values, conservative ones to our school board.
Excellent. Well, that's quite a American success story that to hear, and how from migrant farm workers to professionals. And so I congratulate your ancestors and your family lineage to hold true to traditional family values and hard work. So, speaking of work, tell us a little bit about your occupation, how you got here, and where you plan to go from here.
Yeah, it took me a while, but I finally got to the legal profession. I said I was the first lawyer in my family in 4 generations. I studied government, political science in college just because it was a fascination of mine, a very big interest of mine. Election season, as we enter into it, is one of my favorite times of the year. Seeing all the maps and statistics and poll data and all that is just junk food for me. But I started out working with Senator Cornyn for 1 year, and that led me to law school. In law school at Ave Maria School of Law, is a strong Catholic school. I learned more about my faith, and I learned about the Judeo-Christian principles that undergird our Western civilized way of life, our laws, and here in the United States even, is founded upon Judeo-Christian principles. So I really was looking for that kind of education. I found it at Ave Maria School of Law. When I got out of School of Law, I went to a federal clerkship with Judge Kazin down in Laredo. I did that for 3 years. Judge Kazin was an amazing mentor, a brilliant legal mind, and he had the priorities straight. He always taught me God first, family, and then the work. So I appreciated his sense of priority in life and not letting the legal work get, I guess, out of balance. So I did leave the clerkship to join seminary here in San Antonio for 2 years. I did take 2 years off to study for the priesthood. Did not ultimately end up as a priest, as you know. I opened my own practice in 2010. 2010, yes, as an estate planning and probate attorney. And that's what I do today. I continue to do probate and estate planning law out in the Shirt-Cibolo area of San Antonio, and indeed throughout the northeast side of San Antonio.
Excellent. And so we met back in, I guess it was early 2010, somewhere around there, and when we first met and got to know each other, and before you'd ever chosen to go to law school. I think you were before you decided to consider the seminary. And so it's good to see you as you've grown and accomplished so much. And congratulations on wife and children. Fantastic news. So we like to also we want this to be as personal as possible. So we want to know what you like to do for recreation as well.
I do like to recreate. I don't get a whole lot of time for that with 2 little kids running around, a job, a school board race, and all the other things in life. But when I do have free time, I do like to sit around and watch television. Good, binge watching of programs on television. I do like home repair projects. Working in the backyard or in the shed or putting things together. I've always liked to do that. And back in my seminary days and pre-seminary days, I liked road tripping. Was a good friend of mine. We'd go just driving around the country and learning, seeing places. So traveling, news. I love news, political news. You can always find me watching that. That's entertaining to me. And now, with the kids, playing with the kids adds a new dimension and is renewing after a long day of work or campaigning.
You have to learn to, instead of doing the physical workouts with weights and everything, you have to use the children as your weights on your to help you as you get to have that time of interaction when it's short as it is. So, Cim, what are you running for, and why are you running for
it? School board of trustees in Northeast Independent School District. There's 5 seats up for election. I'm running for the seat that represents District 5, which is largely Johnson High School cluster of schools, but it also entails parts of MacArthur in Madison cluster of schools. It represents the public school system, and the school board is in charge of hiring the superintendent, evaluating the super's job, setting budget and tax rate every year, and setting curriculum and policy and vision for the district-wide. That's the main responsibilities of the school board. Why am I running? For my kids, and indeed for all the kids in the district. The one decision that really propelled me to put myself out there for candidate was the sex ed program that the board passed in 2016, May 9th of 2016. If you have a chance to watch the school board meeting on YouTube channel for the school district, watch that, and you'll learn a little bit about the background and some of the pros and the cons that were mentioned about it. But I went to a presentation put on by a concerned parent, and I learned about the issues and the lessons and the ideas and the topics that were presented to young, often very innocent children. And I thought to myself, what I want this lesson, these topics taught to my 3-year-old, my 2-year-old as she grows up? Would I want my daughter to know about this? Would I want my son to learn this in the public school setting? And the information was appalling, truly appalling and shocking. And I thought, how could any board pass something like this? So that is the main reason why I'm running. But I've learned as I've campaigned and studied the district that there are a number of issues that do need attention, do need solving, do need reform. And we'll get into those issues as we go forward, right, Patrick?
Absolutely.
We'll get a couple more issues to talk about.
So we always like to make sure we've covered the basic grounds, and one of those things is for candidates to have their opportunity to share about platforms and their platform issues. So assume you have 3 or 4 or 5 platform issues you'd like to discuss, and we'll just give a summary of them, and we'll come back and address each one of them individually.
Okay. So if you go to my website, gilsonforneisd.com, right there, the front story next to my face is why I am running. And you'll find my platform on that website. If you get one of these placards on your door, you're going to see some of the things I'm running on the back of this placard. I'm running for reform. We do need to reform the things that do not work at NEISD. One of them is the grievance procedures. They are difficult to understand, and they don't give enough time for a parent or a teacher or a community member really to learn the system and file a grievance. So grievance reform is one. Improving transparency by the board in all of its debate and discussion and voting, improving that transparency to the public. If you look at the history of the school board's meetings and votes, you'll find that over 600 unanimous votes, decisions in a row have taken place over the last 4 years that my opponent has been the board president. And that doesn't give the people an honest view of where their representative stands on an issue. If they're always voting together, and a lot of that discussion is happening behind closed doors. So increasing transparency from the board to the public. Lowering taxes. I think this year, of all years, we probably have the best opportunity to provide tax relief to property owners throughout the district. With increased state and federal aid, either already here or expected to come into the district, with fewer students enrolled in the school district, we have an opportunity, very unique opportunity to decrease taxes and provide relief for those families who are struggling just to make ends meet, let alone pay their property tax. Conservative values. I want to restore conservative voice and values to the school board, to the discussion that takes place, to the voting that takes place, to the policy, visions, curriculum that is approved by the school board. That's really lacking right now. We don't know who's conservative or liberal because they all vote together. This current board votes together in lockstep every single time. So people don't know who's representing them. Those are a few of the top issues. I do believe in school choice, expanding choices for parents, whether it be through the charter school system, homeschooling, or there's a lot of options that we can do to expand school choice within the traditional public school system. Choosing from one campus to the other, one district to the other district, there's a lot of choices we can provide our parents, our families, and we can improve on that. And then lastly, focusing on the basics. We need to really return to the basics. We need to leave agendas, ideologies, political correctness. We need to leave a lot of that out of the classroom. That's not our job. We need to teach reading, writing, technology, citizenship, character, science, the basics to our kids. They're not getting that in all of our schools. They're getting that and a whole bunch of other political agenda that has no place in our schools. So that's quite a few, actually, quite a few platform ideas. And you can learn more definitely at my website, gilsonforneisd.com. I have a lot of blog entries on different issues. You can learn about more of my take on those specific issues.
Okay, so what would you like to do as far as your platform issues you just went through and breaking them down? Is there one that you'd like to take on first that you'd like to break down and go a little deeper on?
Sure, I think grievance procedure, it's not the most attractive or exciting topic, but I think it really impacts so many people. Students and parents, teachers, and members of the public all have an ability to file complaints or grievances against the school district when they believe that the school board, officers, employees, etc., are violating a policy or a law. I myself just went through figuring out the grievance process and filing a grievance. I'm a lawyer. I'm educated in the law, and it was difficult for me to figure out what's the right policy to claim under, who's the right person to file it with, and when's the timeline that triggers. When's my deadline? I will say that the current deadline of 10 days for anybody to file a grievance pretty much will eliminate 90%, I'm guessing, most of the potential grievances people have. Because it takes a while to learn that you have a right to file a grievance, read through the policies, find them, understand them as best you can, figure out who you got to file with, compose your grievance. You got to do all of this in 10 district days or less. Otherwise, you lose your right to file your grievance. And for most families and working people, we are busy. We're busy raising our kids, working, bringing home the paycheck, teaching our kids at home, doing homework, doing chores, that we need more time. So day one, I think one of the quickest reforms and best reforms we can make is to extending that 10-day deadline to much more time. And if you look at the legal world, most limitation periods are either 2 years or 4 years. If you want to file with the Texas Ethics Commission, you've got a 3-year deadline. Why is our board policy limiting people to 10 days? It's not enough time, I don't think, to figure out the system and maneuver it. So I think a lot of people end up losing their rights to relief because they couldn't figure it out within 10 days.
Just to cut in here, what would be a reason, Cim, for a grievance? What would be an example for that?
Well, the board has set out and adopted a number of policies that really incorporate state, federal law or vision or curriculum standards. And so if you go to NEISD.net, you look at Board of Trustees, you click on that, and then on the left menu, you can find operating procedures of the board and policies of the board. And you can just start thumbing through all of that on the computer and start learning all the different issues. But you can challenge a curriculum if you think it's not appropriate to the age that it's being presented to. You can challenge a teacher if you think they're violating a policy. You can challenge one of the board members if you think they're not upholding their operating procedures. So there's a number of things that you can file a grievance for.
Okay, and so that goes through the grievance. The second platform issue that you summarized, what would you like to go into on your second issue?
I think transparency. So I was in a Zoom forum for school board candidates just a couple weeks ago, and a lot of the incumbents were present, and most of the challengers were present, and everybody agreed. Interestingly, everybody agreed that transparency and communication was the top issue of concern. And my opponent's been on the board for 8 years. And one board member's been on for 20 plus years or so. So we've got to do better than we are doing now in improving the transparency of the board, of the school, of teachers and principals and the administration, to communicating messages to the public, letting the public know what's going on and how we're deliberating issues. And one good example of that is, I mentioned it earlier, the record of this board over the last 4 years, 600 plus unanimous decisions in a row by this board, 7-0, 5-0, 4-0, 6-0, one time after the other. And I've watched some of these board meetings online, and how it's conducted is a question is called for vote. The president will say, all those in favor say aye. A number of voices speak aye. And then the president will say, any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is adopted. And there's very little, almost no time for the president to really hear if anybody is going to say a no vote. And I think that's because the board operates under a culture of voting together. They will have their debate and their conversation outside of the open session, meaning behind closed doors, and then they will come out and vote in unison. And I understand they want to present a united front, but when you have a debate behind closed doors, you really do a disservice to the public. I don't know all of the debate. I don't know what a particular member has said or believes or stands for if that debate occurs behind closed doors. The other thing is, if a public member gets up at a board meeting to speak, the board members have a policy of not commenting, not answering questions. And I think that is also another disservice to the public. For the very few people from the public who do attend a board meeting, they take that time out of their busy day to show up and participate. I think they're owed a response by our board members. So as long as the law permits, and I do know that sometimes the law does not permit a board member to comment on an issue that is maybe not on the board agenda, meeting agenda. If it is on the agenda, I think a board member should be free to comment and respond to a public member's question. Right now, that's not allowed by the board's policy or operating procedure. So that's another way we can change and increase the two-way dialogue between the public and the board, bring things out into the open. And what I will do, if elected, is I will look into finding out if the board has violated the Open Meetings Act. I have that inkling that that's going on. I've actually heard it from prior board member that is going on, and it really needs to come to an end. And it only happened if you have somebody on the board that's really willing to make that an issue and ask the questions and look into that. And I'll do that.
Okay. And so let's talk more about what you hope to achieve. You just covered a couple of them. What else do you hope to achieve if you are elected on November 3rd?
Those two there are really big, impactful changes that I think would improve the system. But a review from top down of all the operating procedures of the board and how the board operates itself. I think a good self-reflecting review and making changes of those procedures is in order. I think looking at the policies that are installed, currently in place, we need to look through all of them. And if it takes a special ad hoc committee to do that, we can put that together with some of the board members. If we need to tap some of the skill set from community members and bring them in and get them involved in doing some research for us, that's helpful. But we need to check what we're doing. We need to make sure that there's no conflict of interest between board members and other special interest or corporate groups that are trying to influence the board in making decisions. We need to ask those tough questions and make some improvements all up and down what the board is doing policy-wise and procedure-wise.
Very good.
It's not exciting. It doesn't sound exciting, right? But it's super important to how the school district operates, how the board operates. It's really important. Okay.
What about your background will help you in this elected position if you're elected on November 3rd?
Well, currently none of the board members has a law degree, to my knowledge, so I'd be the first person that would, I'd be one of the people that could have a law degree. I do have one. There is another lawyer running, and that's why I say I might be one of the people who has a law degree. So I think a legal background and understanding of law, limitations periods, procedure, due process. There's a lot of complaints about lack of due process in the grievance procedure. So legal background is important. Being able to speak in public is something I do in the legal field. I'm doing it right now, talking in public. So I don't know how many people who are watching, but that's also something. We need someone who's not going to be timid or afraid to speak up and to ask questions and to comment. I'm happy to do that. But also I do have board experience. I have sat on the City of Selma Planning and Zoning Commission. I did that for a number of years until recently. And I sit on the Guadalupe County MHMR agency. It's a board that deals with handicap and MHMR issues throughout Guadalupe County. I also am the president of the Guadalupe County Bar Association. So I do have board experience. I know how to work with a team. I know how to work independently. I'm also my own business owner. I started my own law practice. I've had to learn about HR, how to hire and fire, how to pay taxes, all the ins and outs, dealing with vendors and contracts, and just making a business run, and dealing with customers, and now dealing with COVID response, all of that. As a business owner, I do think that brings a special skill set to the board.
Very good. And so Cim, as you
Let me mention one other thing, Patrick.
sure, go ahead.
A heart of service and a heart for teaching. So that's on the personal side what I would bring to the school board. I do have a servant's heart. I've helped a lot throughout the years, either at church or in family matters, just helping and even doing pro bono work in my office. You know, if I feel that someone has the need, I will offer my services for free. And in teaching, I love to teach. That's one of my favorite parts of my job, is teaching people about estate planning, probate, wills, things they didn't know about, giving them tidbits of knowledge that are very helpful to them. I really enjoy teaching, and so I appreciate the work that teachers do, that my teachers, the impact they made on me. And so bringing that personal aspect of having a teacher's and servant's heart, that's going to be also part of my experience, my perspective.
Very good. So, and you give some of it, sorry, back, but we want to dive in a little deeper. So what's your view on the Board of Trustees' purpose, actual purpose of the Board of Trustees, not just Northeast ISD, but the board, all Board of Trustees?
Yeah, purpose. So by law, the board has three main jobs: hiring and firing and evaluating the superintendent, setting the budget and the tax rate, and then driving the policy and vision for the district. Those are the three main jobs, responsibilities of the board. I think that there is a problem in how the board is operating on at least one of those, and that's the relationship with the superintendent. Now, I know the superintendent is the person the board hires to administer all the policy, curriculum, and day-to-day operations of the district. That's a big job. I admit that. But when it comes to board business and board agenda items to be decided on, I think the board, composed of 7 members, are these 7 people that are responsible for making decisions for the public. In fact, that is really the public's only representative in the school system, is the Board of Trustees. The public elects us to the board. The public entrusts us with certain responsibility and duty, and the public expects us to do our job faithfully, respectfully, transparently. When the board calls its approach a team of 8, the 8th person being the superintendent, and when that superintendent goes into behind the door discussions on almost everything that the board does, I think that is creating an out of balance situation, an improper balance between the board as employer and the employee that they evaluate. There's some issues that the board alone really should be discussing. And so if there is going to be a team of 8 approach, I think the 8th man ought to be the public. Ought to be the citizen, the taxpayer, the parent, the family member, not the superintendent. I do think that's out of balance, and I would work real quick to change that scenario.
Is there an example you can give?
I was at a grievance hearing 2-3 weeks ago. A parent had filed a grievance challenging a curriculum issue, and the superintendent was sitting up on the dais, right up on the seating where all 7 board members sit. And then they went into executive session with the superintendent. Now, the superintendent had been involved as a representative of the district, had been involved in this grievance from start to finish. And this was all the way at level 4 already. And having someone who basically is the defendant, the district representative, superintendent, go in with the jury, in effect, that's the Board of Trustees, to determine the issues brought up by the plaintiff, that's the parent who filed a grievance, I thought was really troubling, to have the defendant in with the jury and leaving the plaintiff out in the waiting room or in the courtroom. not knowing what's going on behind the scenes. I think that was inappropriate, especially in regards to the issue that was the subject of the complaint. But I think that really sent the wrong message to the parent who filed the grievance and to all of those who supported the parent that were sitting out in the galley of the board meeting room.
Interesting. So you mentioned that the superintendent sitting on the dais with all the board trustees. Is that normal to be done?
That's normal for this current board. That the superintendent sits right alongside the school board president, rather than with the other administrative staff on a different table, a different seating area. The superintendent is not a member of the board, is not elected by the public, doesn't have the same responsiveness or duty to the public as the board of trustees do. So I think that needs to change. A different seating arrangement, for one, sends a different message to the public. So
you mentioned that if there was an 8th seat, it should belong to the public.
Yeah.
So what can residents and taxpayers and parents, but mainly, what can residents of your District 5, expect out of you if you are elected?
Well, they can expect to have, finally, I think, for once in a long, long time, at least first time in 4 years, if not 8 years, a conservative, pro-family parent on the board of trustees. That's an important perspective. I think that respects the viewpoints of the majority of our district. We do live in a rather conservative part of San Antonio, and I don't think our board really represents that conservativeness of our district. And I say that because by looking at the record of the board. Just 3 years ago, the board voted unanimously to change the name of Robert E. Lee High School. And that cost the school board about $300,000 to change and rebrand parts of the campus. What did we change the name to? Lee High School. L period, E period, E period. And the colors didn't change, not much changed. I don't think we really even changed a lot of hearts and minds on the issue of racism in our country and how our district has handled that kind of issue. What I think we did was we just maybe incited more division. We created more division. We wasted taxpayer money. And in the process of doing that, not to be lost at all, was that the public, the 8th man, spoke up on this issue in 2015. After numerous meetings, public comment, written comment, the public spoke out 2-1 against changing the name. And so the board heard the public in 2015, and it voted 5-2 not to change the name of Lee High School. 2 years later, a couple different board members on the board, no public hearing, no public debate, 7-0 voted to change the name of Lee High School. The public, who had just spoken very loudly and clearly 2 years prior, was ignored, completely ignored. And I think that bothered me when I heard that in the news back in 2017, that we were falling in our district to political correctness. I think we were also teaching our kids sending them the wrong message. And the reason that my opponent gives for that vote of hers and of the board was safety of the students, safety of the campus. She had mentioned that there was threats that there would be sit-ins or rallies at the school campus. I don't believe that there was ever a actual rally or sit-in that took place. I don't believe so. If that did in fact happen, I'd want to learn about that. Parents looked into whether any police reports were filed. Castle Hills and the Northeast Police Department, neither of them produced any reports of threat or violence related to that. So I would ask my opponent to come forward with whatever safety threat that there was, come forward and show the public, be transparent. What was the specific threat? Where did it come from? Did it ever really materialize? And even so, even if that was a concern, which it would be a concern of mine too, please explain why the board ignored 2/3 of the community when it had loudly spoken against that decision 2 years prior. And then please explain where the $300,000 or $400,000 of tax money came from. What did the school district lose in order to pay for that change? And what difference did we really make in the lives of the teachers and the students and the community in regards to healing and bringing racial tension down and bringing people together on the issue of race?
Well, just on a side note, since my child just graduated from Lee High School and attended there for 4 years and is now at the University of Dallas, I can tell you that from my experience there is the overwhelming response of parents there did not like the name change, did not want the name change, and were very concerned about the cost, the trickle-down costs to all, like the band. My son was in band, and all the trickle-down costs to all the different clubs and organizations that they'd have to pay for. In this case, the band had an 18-wheeler trailer that you have to repaint, and the costs that are involved there. And so substantial cost involved in that political correctness or that name change to the model rules. But also in that was that, to my knowledge, and no reports were ever made to parents as us in the last 4 years of any issues, of any demonstrations or rallies or anything in regards to that. So for the people's knowledge.
Even if there was a rally, which would be an expression of people's and students' right to free speech and right of assembly, that's fine. If they want to rally, and that's fine. I think probably the better place to rally would have been in front of the board members at a board meeting, and to really teach those kids that that's the right place to come exercise your right in this democracy, to really speak in the system, within the system at a board meeting on an agenda item, not to really camp out in front of a school campus. They can do that, but I don't think the adults in the boardroom should have caved to that kind of threat or even that reality if it ever happened. Mob rule, rallies, that's important. People can do that if they want to express themselves that way, but they shouldn't disrupt class and get away with it. They should come to a board meeting and speak up, as so many teenagers do. A lot of teenagers go to the board meetings and speak on issues, and that's really the best way we can teach our kids about how to interact on an issue. The other thing is, I'm biracial, or I'm by two different ethnicities. I am Hispanic on my mom's side, and I'm Anglo on my dad's side. It's not an issue of I don't care about race and I don't care about minorities. Heck, I'm half Hispanic, half minority. I spent quite a bit of time in Laredo on the border, where these issues are part of everyday life. I don't think we did a good service to our kids in picking out one part of Robert E. Lee's history and not looking at the entire person of Robert E. Lee and the good things that he did for our country, the character that he had, the loyalty he had to his state, the fact that he fought for, after the Civil War, he fought for free public education for freed slaves. He encouraged education for all and was added to the name of Washington and Lee University. He had a big role in healing the nation and really encouraging the Southerners not to stoke the feelings of being losers in the Civil War. He was trying to encourage them to be come together and join back with the Union and heal as a nation. And I think that took probably more courage in Robert E. Lee's time to speak up like that in his community than to do things like today, removing names, removing statues, erasing our history, rather than exploring that history and learning the good from it, talking about the bad from it, but being authentic and not hiding from our past, but learning from our past, and not being afraid to approach that past and talk about it instead of erasing it. I don't think that was the best course to take.
So we went down an important rabbit trail right there with that, but how important it was to discuss that. What in asking the question about what can residents of District 5 expect from you? Can they expect to be, once you're elected, to be accessible, to be able to call you and contact you, ask you questions? How about that?
Yeah, so if you ask that question right now of current board members, many of them will give out their phone number. Everybody has a board email address. The board itself has its own email address. So those are the official ways to reach out to board members. I have an email address, Gilson for NEISD @gmail.com. So that is available to people to reach out to me. I'm on Facebook at Gilson for NEISD 5, the number 5. So you can message me there or comment on any of the posts that I put on, hopefully nice, pleasant comments. I do have a phone. I'll probably be judicious on handing out the phone. I think I'd probably prefer to use email and Messenger more than my cell phone, just because I will respond better to an email or a message than I will to a phone call or text. That's just kind of what I've learned about myself. I do respond better to the written forms of communication. I will be open on the board. If I serve on the board, I'm going to be open. Even if you're not conservative, even if you don't agree with me on some of the issues, I'm not afraid of reaching out across the aisle, so to speak, and talking to different constituencies. I think that's part of the job. Representing the entire district is part of the job. And I think I demonstrated that just a few weeks ago in accepting an invitation to the Northeast Democratic Club student candidate, school board candidate forum. I attended that. I reached out and I tried to find common ground with folks who might vote differently than me in the political world, but I've had most of my life friends who are not conservative, friends who don't agree with my religion and faith, and yet we are friends. And so I think I will bring that personality, that perspective to the board in my deliberations and in my interactions with everybody else on the board or outside the board.
Very good. And so just what's the area of District 5? And can you describe, maybe based on schools, high school, middle schools, and elementary, middle, and high school, so people can have a better idea of what District 5 entails?
Sure, good question. Because many people don't even know that Northeast District is split into 7 geographical zones or clusters of schools. And if you go to my website, you'll see a map of District 5. I'm going to present a map here. It's going to look reversed, right? The digits are reversed, but 1604 runs right through the bottom third of the district. So this blue area is mostly north of 1604 all the way up through Johnson, and the border here is 281. And then there's a good, probably 1/3 or 40% of the district is south of 1604. You got Thousand Oaks Drive on this way, and I think you have Wetmore, Nacogdoches kind of running up this way, and then Judson Road up here. So you've got schools like Johnson, Tejada, Encino Park, Driscoll, Harris, Steuben Ranch. All the schools of my District 5 are listed on the district website. They're also listed on my website. If you check out that blog, you can see exactly where District 5 covers, school-wise and geography-wise.
But if all the schools that feed into Johnson High School would be a good benchmark.
Yeah, Johnson cluster would be the vast majority of District 5, but a good chunk of Madison and MacArthur clusters also form the 7 part of the district.
Okay, very good. So we're going to go to some other issues so people get to know you a little bit better and deal with some policies and beliefs in that.
Mm-hmm.
And so are you pro-life, and what does that mean to you?
Pro-life in the common sense, traditional understanding of the word, yes, I'm pro-life. That means that we protect innocent, unborn life all the way throughout post-birth, right? Adulthood, childhood, old age, to a natural death. So pro-life from birth to natural death. I did support the death penalty, and I just learned recently that the Catholic Church changed its position in 2018 to be not in favor of the death penalty. That's a tough issue for me to deal with, but I am going to be a faithful Catholic on that and defer on that. So defer to the Church's authority on that. So from conception. Thank you for the correction. From conception to natural death would be the pro-life stance. And so any curriculum, any issues, any values that promote life and the family, I think are good for humanity and good for my family for certain, and good for our community. So I would support those.
Yep. And So in that regards, do you recognize a conflict of interest with abortion providers like Planned Parenthood and their affiliates providing sexual education curriculum or instruction in public schools?
Clearly, and you don't have to be a lawyer to figure that one out. If you put in place, if you cede over or give charge to Planned Parenthood or their affiliates or their allies who don't promote abstinence, on their own websites, their own goals, their main goals are to promote contraception artificially or abortion services. Why? And I think that conflicts directly with the state of Texas's public policy of promoting abstinence, which is in our education code. And any sex ed curriculum is supposed to comply with that education code on promoting abstinence as the preferred and only 100% way to prevent teen pregnancy or STDs or HIV. So why would we, as a district, entrust the formation of sex ed curriculum to an organization or a business that promotes abortion and artificial contraception entirely more than it promotes abstinence? And every day of the political world works against the abstinence education that Texas has used, that our district did use up until 4 years ago. I don't think that is smart. I don't think that's wise. And it's just obvious that it's the wrong entity or wrong type of people to entrust with our kids, especially early age. What do we instruct and teach our kids about in regards to human sexuality, sexual behavior? I think that's more important for a parent, more the place of a parent to be teaching and talking to their kids about than the school district to do that.
So the Northeast Independent School District used to take on a sexual risk avoidance policy and has since changed 4 years ago to a sexual risk reduction policy that is more permissive and inconsistent with the other lifestyle choices they teach. So how will you support sexual risk avoidance or the current sexual risk reduction that is encouraging permissive lifestyles that's inconsistent with all the other lifestyle choices that Northeast ISD does?
Yeah, and so hearing those terms might be confusing if it's the first time you've heard it. Sex avoidance means abstaining, right? Abstaining from sex or sexual behaviors. Sex reduction. Sexual risk reduction is the opposite. It's saying you might have it, you might do sex, but you should reduce how you do it or how often you do it. I don't think that sends the right message to our students when we're telling them to avoid cigarettes, avoid marijuana, avoid alcohol, avoid bullying, avoid all the kind of negative behaviors that our community believes to be negative or destructive or risky. So avoiding those is important, not just reducing the amount or the quantity of that kind of behavior. Once we get understanding of the terminology right, as a community, we need to go back to risk avoidance, which is abstinence-based sex education. And we got to be age appropriate as well. So talking to a 10, 11, or 12-year-old about all the different kind of sexual behaviors, activities, and methods, I don't think is appropriate. And I would definitely not want my daughter to be introduced to that at school. Or I don't want my daughter's peers, who she will be talking to and be friends with and relate to be introduced to those topics at such early age.
Okay. And what's your opinion of Northeast ISD's teaching of lifestyle choices in school? Good or bad?
Lifestyle choices. Well, you have to be consistent. Just anytime you're dealing with students and children, you need to be consistent in the message you send and in the discipline or the behavior that you expect of students. So if you say that you promote abstinence, as the district does portray itself to do, then you need to be consistent in teaching abstinence and responsible lifestyle choices or life choices in your curriculum, in your lessons, at your assemblies, in your student activities, in your everyday lesson planning. You have to be consistent. And we should also be teaching another basic is character education. That's in the education code as well, that schools can teach about character and integrity. And so we have to be teaching that as well. And I think this is right on point with that.
Very good. So even though this is a nonpartisan election, Cim, how would you describe yourself personally and politically? You alluded to it a little bit earlier. If you could be, if you feel comfortable doing it and being a little more specific, that might help the audience.
Sure. I've been walking the blocks, meeting people, meeting parents and homeowners, and I'll tell them this is a nonpartisan race, because it is. And I'll tell them you're not going to find a Republican or a Democrat, an R or D behind my name or the incumbent's name. But I'll be honest with folks. I'll tell them I'm conservative. I am a conservative, a fiscal conservative, a social conservative. I believe in those values. I think they've made our country strong from its inception to now. I think it made Texas strong from its inception to now. So I'm not ashamed of being a conservative. But like I said earlier, I am open. I am open to folks of different persuasions, of different lifestyle choices, of different political viewpoints. I think we can disagree without being disagreeable. I just drove over here for this interview and I got flipped off twice because somebody didn't like my Trump sticker on the back of my truck. How do you sit down at the table with that kind of mentality, their kind of mentality of doing something pretty ugly and inappropriate when they don't even know me or who I am as a person? They don't know that my family picked cotton. My Mexican American ancestors and family members picked cotton in the Texas heat. And my mother, who did that, is a Trump supporter. She's a conservative. I get my values from her. I get my values from my grandmother. So judging people on race, judging people on their political belief, I think is unfair. I don't think it's appropriate. And so I want people to know out there that you don't have to agree with me on everything that I stand for, but I do want you to know you can approach me and I am open to hearing you and working together on any common ground that we can find with each other. And I think we need to be courteous to each other in our debate. And I think we need to be, at times, if we do disagree, not be disagreeable with each other. Let's be civil with each other.
Okay. So let's go into a few other issues and address these pretty quickly. How do you feel about the following issues? Virtual classrooms during this COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay, and I just, one more comment is a lot of these issues that we're talking about with relation to school board and district-wide policies, they're not partisan issues. They're parent issues and teacher issues and good education issues. So you can be anywhere on the political spectrum and you can agree on what's appropriate for a child, or let's be more transparent, or let's have better grievance procedures, or let's not erase our history. You know, you don't have to be on the same political page for that. As far as virtual learning during COVID, so we had an incredible challenge that the district had to meet. Probably a pretty short amount of time to meet it in. And everybody, from your own home, your own family, to your business, to the schools, to the whole country and government, everybody was having to deal with the same COVID pandemic and all the impact that brings to people in our lives. So I will hand it to the district for doing what they could and working hard. I know that many people put in countless hours, but I think over the course of the last several months, as the summer months progressed and as we approached the opening of the school year, I think our district could have done better, a lot better at being transparent. Number one, with the parent survey, whether parents wanted in-school classroom, in-person teaching or virtual teaching. That wasn't released, I believe, until 3 days before school year began. And the decision had already been made by the district. So I think transparency in this whole process should have been better. But as far as virtual learning, a lot of parents want their kids to be virtually taught right now, and that is their choice. I believe in school choice, parental choice for their children's education. So they want to do virtual learning. The district needs to make that happen, and they've done that. As far as the 44% of parents who wanted in-person education, those parents did not get heard, or if they got heard, they got ignored. And they don't have that option. Even for the few, was it 5 kids per classroom? Are we still at 5?
I'm not sure.
I don't think we moved to 10 kids per classroom, but for the 5 kids who are in school, in person, they still don't have that in-person instruction. They're still getting the virtual learning. So if you're a special ed student or you're an ESL student, I don't think that virtual learning is the best education product to be getting. And then for all of the families that are at home struggling to deal with virtual learning and no on-campus option, our board pretty much turned a deaf ear to those parents. Single parents, working parents, parents who can't afford babysitters, nannies, tutors, programs. I think we did a disservice to a lot of our families, but for the families who want a virtual learning, they have that option and they're utilizing that.
And I know on special ed teachers, it's very difficult. They're working harder than they ever have.
Yeah. In fact, there's a lot of, there are some student populations that really virtual learning just doesn't satisfy, like the special ed population. MHMR students, English as a second language students, those kids aren't getting the best education that they can get. They're not getting the interaction that they need for their health, their emotional and mental health. They're not getting that on the other side of the computer. My nephew is 15. He's special needs. He has attention deficit. He's got borderline MR issue, intellectual disabilities, and it's difficult for him. It's too difficult for him to sit at a computer for 8 hours a day or 6 hours a day. So he's not going to be learning to the optimum that he can. So we've got to be mindful of that, and we really got to bring back in-person instruction as soon as possible, like soon already. I think we can do that safely already.
All right. Should schools be allowing prayer in school?
Well, what do you mean by that?
Just
You mean
in
student prayer, teacher prayer, official prayer? Absolutely. Students have a First Amendment right to pray, to believe whatever they want to believe, and to exercise their faith. That's the First Amendment. I think teachers have a right to pray. They also have a First Amendment. I know many good teachers who take their Bibles to school or their rosaries and they pray at school, and they should not be told to hide their Bible or hide their rosary or not talk to a student about faith. If a student approaches that teacher and wants to talk about faith, we live in a free nation, and whatever law or whatever Supreme Court decision stands in the way of that, I think was a mistake and should be changed. So I have no problem with expression of faith in the schools.
Mm-hmm. And how about parental access to all learning materials shown to children? Like there's been some examples of things that haven't been taught of late because it's virtual. But what's your opinion on parental access to all learning materials?
I think parents are the primary and first educators of their children. That's not a conservative or liberal point of view. That's just a natural, real point of view. Parents are the first educators. I'm teaching my child good table manners. I'm teaching her how to count and to learn Spanish at school. I'm teaching her a number of things. All of us parents want what's best for our kids. We want to be a part of that teaching. There's some things we can't teach, like geometry or algebra or trigonometry, and so we send our kids to schools for the teachers to teach them those things. But it doesn't mean we can't have access to the curriculum and the books that are being put in front of our kids and the lesson plans that are put in front of our kids. So we do got to be mindful of our teachers' time commitments. They're humans, individuals, family members. They have families just like we do. So we do need to be mindful of our requests for access, but parents do have a right to know what their kids are being taught, whether it's a library book or an assembly spokesperson or a speaker at an assembly. What is the agenda at that assembly? Or the books. What are the curriculum books? Or the virtual planning. What are the virtual programs we're using? So it's got to be made accessible, reasonably accessible to the family, to the parents.
Okay. So a couple other issues that are on the docket, I should say on the election ballot on November 3rd. One of those includes pre-K for SA, and in which the city of San Antonio, there are 16 school districts in the independent school district in the city of San Antonio, and the city of San Antonio created its own called pre-K for SA. 8 years ago, it's up for renewal. What's your stance on that?
So I think preschool, if a family can provide that for their kids, is helpful for the kids. To learn early, to interact with other kids early. That's important. I have my kids in preschool. I have my daughter in preschool, and my son's about to start pretty soon. I think that's important. I didn't know a whole lot about pre-K for SA, and to be honest, I still don't know a whole lot about it. But I did hear some about it from my councilman Clayton Perry, and what I heard I did not like. What I heard was millions of dollars, between $40 and $100 million of taxpayer money from City of San Antonio, going to help and fund maybe 2,000 students. Whether it's 40 million or 100 million to help 2,000 students, I think is an incredibly inefficient use of money. I think it came out to $20,000 per student. And if our public schools are already providing preschool options, let's work on that. Let's improve that. If it costs a family $8,000 or $9,000 to send their kid to a private preschool, maybe we should save $12,000 of taxpayer money and give a voucher to families to send the kids to a preschool of their choice, maybe a religious preschool of their choice. But it's really, really inefficient use of money, and we're not able to help so many kids. 2,000 kids, that's a drop in the bucket. And the city is spending our money unwisely in that regard. So I probably would vote against. In fact, I know I'm going to vote against pre-K for SA on that basis alone. It's not efficient use of taxpayer money.
Okay, and so let's talk about Texas pre-K, because just a couple of years ago, the state legislature passed their own pre-K4 program, and now it seems like there might be some overlap between that and pre-K for SA. Are you familiar with the Texas pre-K4 program, and what's your thoughts on that?
I'm not familiar with Texas pre-K4. I'm not familiar with that, so I'm going to have to study on that. I've learned a lot of issues as I have, after I embarked on this campaign. I've learned a lot of issues, and I know there's more to learn and hear about. So if any of the viewers have issues of concern that they want to share, please, Gilson for NEISD@gmail.com, or go to my Facebook page, leave me a message. You go to the website, Gilson for NEISD.com, and comment, leave a message that way. Let me know of the issues that concern you, whether you're a teacher or a parent or taxpayer.
Yeah, and just so you know, it might be good for all candidates to know how much the city of San Antonio is paying and giving to each of the school districts each year from pre-K4 program. And I know after the first full year of completion of the pre-K4 program, they wrote a $900,000 check to Northeast San Antonio School District from pre-K for SA. So another thing for viewers to find out and question about before you go vote on November 3rd. Okay, so let's talk, and you talked about being civil, so I would only expect the same. So let's talk a little bit about your opponent, and who is your opponent, and what is there anything that you'd like to talk about that's good or bad, and as objective as possible.
Okay, sure. Shannon Grona is the incumbent. She currently represents District 5, and she is sitting as the board president. She's held board president for 4 years now, and she was vice president for the 2 years before that. She does have a lot of experience in the district as a parent, as a PTA member, and on school board. She definitely has a lot of experience. I think that when she started her career on school board, it was promising and representative of the conservative values of our district. I think in the last 4 years particularly, she has lost her way. And I will say that. I think she has lost touch with the voters in our district. In 2016, she kicked out the abstinence program, Choosing the Best. She voted to replace that with this Planned Parenthood type program, Draw the Line, Respect the Line, which you can learn more about at NEISD, voteforchange.com. It's a great website to learn about some of the top issues that are relevant to this election. 2017, she voted to rename Lee High School. Just 2 years prior, she had voted against renaming Lee High School. In 2020, in the State Board of Education race, she endorsed a Democrat. And I understand Ms. Grona is a Republican, or had been up through March of this year, and she endorsed a Democrat over 3 Republican primary candidates. The Republican running is Lonnie Pop. The Democrat Grona endorsed didn't make it through the primary, but I think that we do live in a largely Republican voting area, and to endorse and serve as the campaign treasurer for the Democrat candidate for state board who right now is considering all of these sex ed, health, PE types of questions, is a serious breach of trust to the public that Grona represents. And then just this year, again, 2020, the board approved a budget that increases your net taxes on your property. I've heard of $119 per family, but when I read the school paperwork that presented at the board, it was about $143 per household. So I think, although she calls herself fiscally responsible and she talks about lowering the tax rate for the last several years, of all the years that we had an opportunity to lower taxes, I think this was the year. We got, by my estimates, at least $30 million of assistance from the USDA. I think we got $10 million from another program, a federal state program. We have fewer students enrolled, at least 2,000 students fewer that have enrolled in the district. We have a lot of parents that are doing virtual learning, which, probably saves on some cost. And so we could have made a reduction in the budget. She didn't do that. So I think her track record of the last 4 years has been not one in keeping with the conservative leanings of our district. And that's something you really find on the entire board. All 7 board members, when they vote together on things that don't line up with the conservative leaning of our district, I think breaches that trust, breaches the faith that our voters have put in the board. And so I think it's time for her, after 8 years on the board, to retire, to go home. She's done a lot of hard work for the district. I will give her that. A lot of hard work. But I think she's lost touch with the values of our district. And so it's time for her to retire and to put in a conservative, pro-family parent who appreciates the parents and all the stakeholders in our district and won't belittle them or ignore them.
Okay. So what are some things you really like about Northeast ISD?
Northeast ISD, I think the strength, you might hear it said that our schools are great. And many of them are. We do have some failing elementary schools, 2 failing elementary schools. We do have some below average, we could produce it or do better in some schools. But what I'm getting at is the strength of our district is the people in our district and the families in our district. You got to have good family and parent support for a student to do well in school. You can be in the poorest district or poorest area of town, but if your parents are strong supporters of getting that education, just like Dr. Ben Carson, he lived in some pretty rough areas of the country, but his single parent mom really emphasized education and succeeding and doing well in school. And now he's Secretary of HUD, brain surgeon, etc. We can do good as a district if we honor the contributions of our families and of the parents who make up our community. And of all those who've gone before, they may not have kids in the district anymore, but our grandparents, our retired people, they contributed to making NEISD strong and great, and we need to honor their contributions. We don't need to reverse course and do something completely different. We need to honor the conservative values and parents and families of our district. I will do that. I will respect those values and those customs and those traditions. I won't do away with them like this board has done on a number of issues over the last 4 to 8 years.
And what are some areas of improving the Northeast ISD?
Areas of improving. There's probably a lot that I don't even know about. The district is so big with 66,000 students and so many thousands more people living in the district. There's a lot of issues going on, and I've brought up some of those issues. Grievance procedures can be improved. Transparency can be improved. Lowering taxes, being more fiscally responsible. Rooting out any kind of corruption or conflict of interest or open meeting act violations that are going on. We need to look into that and root that out. We need to do better for the failing schools that we have. And we need to give parents more choices, both in the traditional public school system and outside of that. Whether it's homeschooling, charters, vouchers, or within the district, or between districts. We need to do more to encourage, to give parents more choice. So the board can work with other school districts on improving and expanding those choices. I haven't said much about the teachers who do an incredible job, but we need to make sure that they are supported, that they are paid a good wage, and that they are given the resources that they need to do their job. I think we tie their hands in so many different ways with so many different regulations and policies. We need to make their jobs simpler and let them not be stressed out with all that regulation and policy. We need to really support our teachers better. We need to expand special education, making sure that kids like my nephew and like some of the neighbors that I have in my neighborhood have better support, whether it's through more one-on-one learning or small group learning or more therapies. We need to make sure those kids are being taught better. And then generally speaking, let's get rid of the political ideologies, the special interests, and let's just focus on the basics. I've heard that so much from the people I met with. Focus on the basics. Let's teach the kids what we as parents can't teach, and let the parents teach what they can teach. Be partners with the parents in everything that they're trying to do, but we need to exercise good common sense, good values. Not everything can go. There has to be adults in the room and responsible decisions made, especially as we go forward in the new issues that we will approach in the coming 4 years. We need to have that good, sensible, conservative approach that made our district strong.
Very good. And what are you mentioned before, Cim, but go ahead and share again the resources that people have available to them to get to know you better, to do more research on their voting and to be able to share with them.
So be on the lookout for this. I'm walking the blocks. I'm trying to meet you. If you want to volunteer and help me walk the blocks, please message me on Facebook, Gilson for NEISD 5, or Gilson for NEISD.com. You can message me there too. My email is Gilson for NEISD@gmail.com. This November, please vote all the way down the ballot and go with Gilson for School Board of Trustees, District 5 at NEISD. Go with Gilson.
And so any last thoughts you'd like to share with the voters and the audience that you'd like them to know about you that we might not have covered?
I'm working to make our school board great again in the way that it handles issues, policies, and concerns, and handles parents, their comments, and their concerns. I want to make our school board great again. It's going to come with a change of leadership. It's going to come from the top. And that really will only happen if the people out in the voting booth or out at home filling out the absentee ballot make that decision for change. It's time to vote for change, retire the incumbents, bring in all the challengers that are trying to make a difference for the better. It's time for a different perspective, one that respects the community. So please make our schools and school board great again by voting for Gilson. And let's make a change. Let's make a change on November 3rd, all the way through early voting, October 13 through 30 as early voting. So get out there, vote early, and then come help me campaign. All right. I need your help and your donations.
Okay. Well, this concludes the fifth part of a SAFA, San Antonio Family Association series on education to voters of the Northeast Independent School District candidates. We have extended an invitation to all candidates. There are 11 running for 5 positions, and all candidates have been invited. We're looking forward to interviewing the rest of them. We want to thank you, Cim, for making time to visit with us so that the voters and voting public can get to know you on a personal level. And you did very good. And want to thank you for your attention and this opportunity. If you have suggestions, you can certainly send them to info@sanantoniofamilyassociation.com, info@sanantoniofamilyassociation.com. We welcome any input. And as we go forward and trying to be as consistent with the questions and as objective for all candidates to be able to espouse who they are, what they believe, what they want to do on the school board. And so we'll close in prayer now. And so please join us as we close up. We're going to pray for our country, our state, our county, our city, and especially the Northeast Independent School District. God our Father, giver of life, we entrust the United States of America, the state of Texas, Bear County, and the city of San Anthony to your loving care. You are the rock on which this nation was founded. You alone are the true source for our cherished rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Proclaim this land for your glory and dwell among your people. Send your spirit to touch the hearts of our nation's leaders with an intense desire to fulfill their responsibilities that protect individuals, marriages, families, and long-term domestic prosperity. Open our public officials' minds and all people who live in America to the inestimable worth of human life and to the responsibilities that accompany human freedom. Remind your people that true happiness is rooted in seeking and doing your will. Through the intercession of your Holy Spirit, grant us the courage to reject the culture of death, indifference, communism and socialism, egalitarianism, environmentalism, and totalitarianism. And bless us with the desire, strength, and fortitude to be courageous conduits to help bring about a new culture of life, freedom, and responsibility, marriage, and family. We ask your divine assistance to help us be and remain faithful to you, and for our collective petitions to your Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. On behalf of the San Antonio Family Association, I'm Patrick Rondolan, and I encourage you to get out and vote. Early voting starts October 13th, as Cim mentioned, and goes through right before Election Day, which is Tuesday, November 3rd. This is the first time in Texas history since the passing of straight party ticket voting that there's no more straight party ticket voting. You'll actually have to vote for each and every race, which is a great thing. And you'll have to work your way all the way down the long ballot to the bottom for Northeast Independent School District, and where you can vote for the 5 different districts, depending on what district you live in. Districts for open for the election are districts 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 2 and 7 are not on the ballot this year, and districts 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all up. And so your vote does count. And as we've seen in recent elections, even this year in the primary, just 38 votes count and can change the direction and course of the election. So please get out and vote. Make sure you register to vote. Make sure your family and friends are, and help a neighbor or friend get out and vote as well. So on behalf of the San Antonio Family Association, thank you very much for your time and attention. We'll look forward to seeing you again soon on the Safe Education series. Have a great day.
Okay, not too bad.